I'm going to make a prediction here. I think that Trump is going to win this election, and this is not political. This is not political. I think that the reason is because of the immigration issue. And I also think that some parties around the world, not just in the US, but have been very insensitive and not listening to this issue. And I think that like no matter how many good things you do in life, if you do one really bad thing, you go down. That's how it works. You can be a great employee, but if you steal something or you beat up your boss, like there's certain things that they don't care. They don't care what you did because that one thing overpowers everything else. And I think the immigration issue is one of these things. And also I think that it has been confusing. I got to empathize with Democrats a little bit because you look at countries like the U.S., and they've always been immigration countries. They have. Like everybody's from somewhere else. Even Indians from different tribes moving around. Like there was been immigrants from Mexico, there's, up Central America. There's been a lot of movement, and the country was based on that. So I can see why people ignored this one because they said, this is what made us great, but every good thing changes. Everything that's good ends up being like water's great, but too much water is a tsunami. It's great. It's great to, a lot of things are like that. They're great when they're in measured amounts, and then too much is not good. You want like, for example, dude wants his girlfriend to like him, but he doesn't want her to be stalking him and, crazy, right? There's like, you want things, but you want them in a measured amount. And I think what happened in this last 10 years or so is that one of the big issues of our lifetime has shifted in a very complex way. And I think part of the reason why the Democrats are going to lose, and the same thing, I was just talking to Raf here about Europe is going to follow. So I'm making a big prediction here. I think what's happened is, and I'm going to tell you the reasons too. And I do these videos because I think we all want to learn stuff and see reality. So I'm trying to break down an issue I see. I think that's why it's been such a blind spot, because so many people are proud to have immigrated, and they're like, my family, we came here, we did well, and we love this country, and we wouldn't have been allowed if it would have not, if they wouldn't have let us, the whole thing wouldn't have happened. And so there's people who built their whole, like, almost the self-concept of their family on the foundation of this issue, right? And other countries won't let people in, like Japan. Like there's other countries that are very closed on immigration, and they always have been. So, and I think the Republicans, if I was going to say the conservatives of the world, have done a terrible job at breaking this down. And part of what I want to do in this video is break it down so everybody can understand it. So I think the Republicans have been just saying, hey, there's too many immigrants, they're causing crime and all this. They're not, the way that you win an argument is when you're right, basically. And the way you get right is by thinking the whole thing through from the beginning. So you have to give credit where credit's due on the other side. You have to acknowledge truths, and then you have to explain if anything's changed. You have to explain how that happened and what's going on. And I think the Republicans have done an absolutely terrible job. I mean, I can't think of a worse job than what the Republicans have done, because they got this issue. They were definitely right about this issue, but they've done a terrible job. So let me say what I think was happening and what the Republicans should have said, and also what the other side, how they should have reacted. I think what happened was it was just a matter of too much too fast, and also no screening, right? Okay, so just with any issue, they should have just said, look, we're all from other countries. We understand that. But water's great. Salt is great. Love is great. What else is too much? Speed is great. It's great to drive on the freeway at a high speed, and then you get where you're going quickly. But what happens if you triple the speed on the freeway? Like literally, it's only triple. It's nothing. What if you triple the speed? So everyone's going 70 and they start going 210. Yeah. What happens? Well, accidents are going to increase exponentially, right? Yeah. And cars, just all kinds of blowouts are going to happen in cars. Tires are going to blow out. People get hit from behind. Just all kinds of craziness. And they only increase the speed 3 times, which isn't very much. If you look at immigration, it's gone up like crazy. Like the charts I've been looking at, they have immigration from the beginning of the United States, and it just goes into a hockey stick at the end. It's like crazy. Like I think that that dynamic was underappreciated by both. Yeah, that's what I think. The Republicans could not see it either. They're just trying to win an election, and the Democrats couldn't see it. Yeah. And same thing in Europe. But I think the way to look at the issue is like, maybe it's because we have better transportation now, maybe because of the internet, but things aren't like they used to be. Like people would come over in a boat, it takes 3-5 weeks, and you come over with your family, and it's like there's a check-in guy. Like remember they used to all land at Ellis Island, right? And then they would all go through Ellis Island almost, every immigrant. And I've been there. I've been cruising around the island, the Ellis, and there's another one, and I was looking at it, I was thinking, God, this place is tiny. Like there's only a few buildings. Mm-hmm. So in other words, all the immigration at the greatest period of a U.S. immigration was just handled by a few buildings, right? Yeah. Well, now we got, I forgot what the numbers are. You guys can put the numbers in, but it's like hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border. So every month, right? So it's just. I think that let me go to the other side. So what happens if you allow in a lot of people, right? What happens? Like too many people come in. Look at your house. We have 4 beds in this room. Mm-hmm. If we had 6 guys, it's pretty uncomfortable because one guy's on the floor. Maybe one guy's on the floor under one bed and the other guy's under. It would be tough to get 6 guys in here. Yeah. But what if you tried to put 45 guys in here? And I think that's the kind of numbers we're talking about. Like it's more than 10 times. Like I think it would be like trying to get 60 guys in this room. Like that's really what you're talking about. And then what happens with 60 guys? Everything gets broken. Like the air conditioner, the window, the ladders that are in here, everything gets broken and dirty, and it's not because the people are bad or that they're anything wrong with them or their culture. It's just the problem is just too many people in a room. It just doesn't work. And in China, you can really see it. If you've never been to China, you probably don't really. I'm totally serious too. You think you know what a crowded place is. You think you know what a lot of people is. But if you've never been to China, especially in the 80s, you probably don't really know what a lot of people means. Like I do, because I went to China first in the 80s, and I was there, and it is like, it's hard to explain to people that have never seen it, because you think you know, right? You're like, oh, I know what a lot of water looks like. I know what a lot of people looks like. But what basically happens is, it's kind of like a living hell. Like, especially during a Chinese holiday, or when there's like a Chinese tradition, everybody does one thing, or you're supposed to do this for your ancestors or whatever. Like when I would go down to the river, the Bund, I love going to the Bund. It's beautiful. It's very underappreciated. And by the way, I do want to do a China summit at some point, like a Shanghai summit. I know the city backwards and forwards, and they have a new visa where you can get, I think, 6 days on arrival. So at some point in the near future, within a year, I'd love to do a Shanghai summit and take you guys around, because you'll be blown away by that city. And I know every fucking alley. I that city, there's no city I walked more than Shanghai, and climbed up the stairs. And plus I had a real estate business there, so I had to go to all kinds of buildings I wouldn't have gone to. And I spent all my other time cruising around with my friends, because I don't drink, so I wasn't going to clubs, right? So I was just looking around, walking around, right? But anyway, when you go down to the Bund, during a Chinese holiday, it's the oddest thing because like there's a lot of people, of course, like there's just people everywhere. But so then you think, well, I got to drink some water, right? So then you go to the store. The shelves are all empty. They're just, I mean, this is China where they get this all the time and they do their best to keep those things stocked. It's not like America where if you sent a bunch of people in, it would just clean it out for months because they wouldn't know what to do. You know, the shelves would be gone, you know, everything would be gone. But in China, like, there's just too many people for the trucks. They can't, Shanghai is so crowded that you can't, if everybody came out of the building, they can't stand on the ground. So if there was a fire or earthquake, there's not enough room on the ground for all the people. They have to be in the buildings. So otherwise, it takes time to get them out of the city, right? So when people go to one place, what happens is the water's gone, the bottled water's gone, the drinks are gone, the toilet paper, you go to take a shit, no toilet paper. And usually somebody's sleeping in there. There's usually somebody sick or for whatever reason, there's people camping out in the toilet. So you can't even use the toilet. Like that's what happens when we have too many people. It's like weird things happen that you would never see. Like you just go to the toilet and it's like you're trying to push the door open and then you look in there and there's like 20 guys in the toilet. And they're just sitting there, right? And the toilet's got like suitcase on it. So that you can't, you know, so then you go to get water, there's no water, right? And so then we'll you know, then you think, I got to get out of here. So you go to leave. And then you realize there's like millions of people going that way. So like it's so crowded, they close the subways. So you can't get on the subways because they close them because it's just too many people. That many people starts breaking the gates and like things start getting, basically crowds, they push things over. They start to, things happen like there's like crush and then people die, right? So kids die especially. So what happens when it's really crowded is that you basically never want to experience it again. I think one time is good because you really will understand why too many people is not good. And a lot of people will start to point fingers and blame it on culture, but it's just too many people is what it is. And we never have that problem in America. When I go to America, I remember, this is a true story, when I went to New York for the first time, I'd never been there and I'd read about the big city and the lights and everything. And I had been living in Japan and China and I went to New York for the first time and I remember like expecting to kind of be blown away by the city because, you know, my brain was formed when I was a kid, right? Yeah. And then, you know, of course I know things, but not emotionally, right? So I get there and I remember thinking, this is a nice small town. That's honestly what I thought. That was my first impression. I thought, wow, this is so relaxed. There's nobody here. There's a lot of sunlight. There's no tall buildings. Like I was in Manhattan. I was in fucking Manhattan. And honestly, that was my impression. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating.
When was this?
This was, it was just before 9/11. Oh. Yeah, before 9/11. So I went there to visit my friend Mark, who was working at Goldman Sachs, one of my Tokyo friends. Yeah. And then 9/11 happened. I went soon after that. But I remember thinking like, these buildings are not that big. Like there's tons of sunlight here. You know, and I was like, wow, it's cool. There's so much green here. I like, if you're from New York, you're probably like, this guy's on drugs. But if you lived in Asia at the time, you would understand. Like I think it was true, really. For me, it was true. I thought this is great. There's no people. I can just cruise around, you know. Anything you want to buy, it's just there, you know. You go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom, you know. It's like, it's easy, you know, just everything's easy. You want to take a train, you take the train. You know, like in China, like it was, let me, you probably still are not getting it. Okay, so let me give you an example. So you want to buy something or you need to do something and you need to be in line. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it is, just some kind of, you need something, right? You just, whatever it is, you're dying of thirst. You got to get in line to get water or maybe there's only one way out or something. There's only one boat to go across, so you're waiting. What happens is there's so many fucking people that people just won't wait in line. So you're waiting in line, but everybody's going in front of you. Yeah. So, and then you're like, that happens for a while, And then you get frustrated and you think, this sucks. Like I'm never going to get to the front. Mm-hmm. And so then you think, well, fuck, I'm going to do it too, right? Yeah. So then you try to do it and you realize it's a learned skill. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just do it.
Because people will yell at you.
No, they know how to do it better than you.
Right.
So, you'll realize that you're dealing with people that have a lifetime experience of dealing with all these people. Mm-hmm. And they know how to mentally block it out. You will be very emotionally upset and frustrated and even scared because anything could happen. Like you get crushed, can't get home, missed your flight. And just all the people can get kind of overwhelming sometimes, especially on a boat. Like I've been on a boat, there's so many people. And then there's just like hundreds of thousands of rats running around by your feet and up on the floor and on the ceiling and everywhere. Like rats everywhere, right? On some boats and people. And then you find out the boat sunk like 2 weeks before that on the same thing I was on. Yeah. So like it makes sense why it sunk, right? But how the fuck are you going to go besides taking a boat? There's no other way. Some islands, there's no other, there's no magical ways to get anywhere. You have to deal with what you're dealing with, right? So then you wait in line and you try to, and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to cut in line. And then you try to cut in line. And I don't like cutting in line. So for me, you just end up waiting like maybe 8 hours to do something that should be like 20 seconds. At the end, you just kind of got to give up at some point. In China, you just give up and you say, you know what? I really don't need water. I don't really need food. I don't really need to go to the bathroom. Like you learn to kind of just be okay with nothing. And when you get like that, that's when you're getting to be Chinese. Is when you're just okay with fuck all. Yeah. You're like, I don't really have to go to the bathroom. Even though I think I do, I actually am fine. And then you'll realize the discipline of the other people around you. And you'll realize that you've been making a fool out of yourself by being, even if you didn't do it out loud, you internally were going crazy, right? And then you realize, okay, it all doesn't matter. It's all no big deal. And I'm talking to the most disciplined of the people on this podcast. Like, that's you. The other people are worse. Like, they're going to start fighting or yelling, or they're going to make a total ass out of themselves, right? You know what I mean? But for you, the most disciplined, you'll realize that even you were just being a fool. As you realize that it doesn't matter. Like, nothing matters that much. Just, you're in a situation. It's going to end. When it ends, you will leave. And then you won't go back during that holiday to that place again. And that's what a lot of people is. And that's something that I think Indians, I think Chinese understand. And maybe Japanese in the 50s. It was very crowded here in the 50s. Yeah, but now it's not. Japan is not a good example anymore. But other countries are like that. But so I think that the pockets of too many people, and again, I'm not comparing it to China. I'm just saying like that is what a lot of people. So when you're dealing with too many immigrants, it's different issues, but it's just simply too many people, right? And so the pockets of those problems were so far away that nobody really felt it. Like, did you really feel the immigrant surge in your own life that much? I felt it a little bit. And I look back at New York where we did the summit and I hung out.
I felt the rent prices rise a lot.
Rent price went up.
I think it's related.
Sure. Rent went up. I felt it in certain ways, and I went around the U.S. a lot and I saw things. But I don't think I think the people that really knew were like the Border Patrol, maybe the people in those towns where there was like a big border crossing area. I think they were the only ones who really knew. And I think if they would have had, like looking back, if they would have had, and this is what we should do now, is put up like live stream cams in HD so that you can see these pockets. And so that not to change your mind, but just to show you what's going on. And then when it gets better, you'll see that, right? It's kind of like looking at a surf camp. You're watching the ocean, right? What's going on? No surf today. Stormy seas. Somebody's in danger. Whatever. I'm going to go help, right? You can actually make rational decisions because you can see it in real time. So I think something like HD cameras on the border and then a way to watch them on the internet so that you could see, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's insane. There's no way that town could accommodate those people. It's not about them. It's not about what color skin they are. It's not about what degrees they have. It's not about what clothes they're wearing. It's just like, that's too many fucking people, right? So the knowledge, I think that the it's kind of the issue of our time is that maybe because of transportation that things have changed. And so long held, deeply held emotional beliefs are going to have to get updated based on current trends in the world, right? Is things can change really fast now. It's not like before. Things can change really fast. 100,000 people could easily come in overnight on the border. Easily. 100,000, no problem. Yeah. And then from the Canadian border too, because a lot of people are going to Canada and then coming in, right? So like it's not just one area, one border, right? And the boats, I know that there's a lot of boats landing in where I grew up now on the beach. They're like cheap, fast boats. They're landing on the beach where I surf and hang out with my friends, and they're being abandoned. But they're full of people, and then it's just coming from Mexico. It's just coming. They're just so these things when you see them, and maybe even some kind of communication with the people, like honest people, not political people, just honest people. They'll just say, "Man, I'd never seen this before. This beach here, never before. Down there, yeah, but never here. And I heard now, my neighbor said down there." And then you go down there, right? Like real investigative, open-minded, non-political, non-partisan, honest people looking at things, right? So I think what's going to happen is that this is kind of like a watershed moment where the reality of an untenable situation is kind of coming up. And it's happening, and it's going to happen, like you said, it's going to happen in Europe next. I think what's going to happen is Trump's going to win the election, and it's not because he's a great guy or anything. It's because of this issue. Everybody knows he's tough on this one. Everybody knows he was early on this one. Everybody knows he tried to warn people. I'm not saying he did it perfectly, but that was his issue. He pushed the border wall. He was really trying to do something on this issue. So because of that, not that he's a great guy, but he's the most believable. Just like we might believe, somebody who started a company in Silicon Valley on AI, because they started it, right? It's like they're the early people, right? So it's like they saw it, they knew it, they did it. Maybe not perfect, but they were there, they're aware. We know they care about that issue, right? So I think that the Democrats will lose because of this issue. Pretty much this issue alone. And it's a stubbornness, really, of people not to look at things from other people's perspective. I personally am going to predict now that the Democrat Party is going to make a U-turn on this too. Because like all this information has got through they have all these, one of the problems now with information is the media filters things that they don't want to show because they think it's not good for their guy. And so they've been doing this, and that's helpful sometimes. But it's not helpful if there's a real problem. It's not helpful if the guy's losing blood and he's going to die. It's helpful if you're trying to keep the peace and the way things are, right? But in emergencies, it's not helpful. When a tsunami comes through town, you got to get those backup generators going to keep that nuclear plant cool. Otherwise, like major problems are coming later. And so I think that basically this issue is going to change the election. I think it's going to change. I totally agree with you. It's going to change elections in Europe. And I think that every party is going to get on board and knowledge will start to disseminate. Now, let's see what happens. Let's see. I can feel it. I can feel it building up. Now, will it happen? Like I said, let's see. And I'll just end on this. It's not a partisan issue. It's just like we're doing with everything, every issue in our life. What is true? What should I do? What's changed? What's new? What opportunities? What's hurting me that I didn't realize because it's too slow? Where am I too stubborn? Where am I too stubborn? I just can't change. And why am I too stubborn? Maybe you're stubborn because you think you don't have the skill or the energy or the talent, and then you get around guys and you tell them the truth, and then they're like, I was the same way, but then I did this one thing, and then that led to this, and then you'll find a solution, right? So I think that's in the end of the day, that's what we're doing here. Anyway, interesting to hear what you guys have to say.